Hi, and welcome to part 2 of our little road trip from Rye in East Sussex. Although in this part we'll leave Bodiam Castle and return to Rye in the evening, so don't miss that. The county of East Sussex is in the south of England. Our travels will also take us a little into Kent, and I'll explain why a little later. Anyway, let's take a look at that route then. In total it's 53 miles or 83 kilometres. This part is the longer at 35 miles or 54 kilometres. In part 1 we started in Rye, heading on to Rye Harbour, Winchelsea Beach, up to the town of Winchelsea, before heading across country to finish at Bodiam Castle. So we start part 2 at Bodiam Castle, heading across to Robertsbridge and Rudyard Kipling's Batemans, Burwash, Hawkhurst, and finally returning to Rye. So without further ado, let's complete this trip. And we'll take another sneak peek at Bodiam Castle. The complete video of this, Rye, and part 1 of the road trip will be available at the end of this video. The description below includes links to all the places we visit or mention, so if you're interested, don't forget to check them out. Bodiam Castle is a National Trust property, along with Batemans and Lamb House in Rye, so it may be worth considering National Trust membership. Anyway, let's get on with this road trip. As always, I'll point out some of the places to eat and drink en route. Granted, there may be a few pubs, but the choice of non or low alcohol drinks has improved over the years, so it's easy to be sensible. It's just over 5 miles to Robertbridge, but I'll speed up the footage to help us along. The whole route is available for free in Google My Maps, and as I said, the link will be in the description below. I've trimmed down the road segments, but I have left all the junctions in, so if you decide to follow it, there shouldn't be any nasty surprises. So why have I included Robertsbridge in this route? Well, it has a mainline railway station. If you were to cycle this route and you wanted to break it in half, it would give you 2 convenient points along with Rye. It's also another of my hidden gems, and hopefully you'll agree with that when we get there. It would have originally been on the route from London to Hastings, but has now been bypassed by the A21. And if you pop the details into the Historic England website, you'll see the streets are lined with historic buildings. Almost as if to prove my point, as soon as we leave the A21, we are greeted with 18th and 19th century white weatherboarded buildings, but underneath one of them is a 15th century art. As we approach the centre of Robertsbridge, I'm going to slow the footage down until we find a parking space. There is some on-street parking and a small village car park. Okay, confession time. It may have taken more than one attempt to find a safe parking spot, but you never noticed that Land Rover magically appear, did you? Okay, so the car park is here on our left. Time to jump out and explore. So Robertsbridge is believed to date from 1176, when a Cistercian abbey was founded there by Abbot Robert de St Martin. The name Robertsbridge was first recorded in 1198 when Richard I granted the village a market charter. We're now going to take a look at the village war memorial with the George Inn behind it. The George Inn is one of 2 pubs, the other being the Ostrich, that has rooms, so you could stay here on that cycle trip too. If you take a look at the village sign, you can see the old abbey and a bridge. That bridge spans the River Rother, a river we became familiar with in part 1 and we'll revisit again on this road trip. Now a little bit of history. The building on the end, which has been split and is now Piper's Cottage and St Catherine's, was originally the Stage Inn, built in around the 15th century. I guess from a time when stagecoaches ferried people between London and Hastings. Hastings is just over 10 miles from here as the crow flies. There's a little passage here that we can take and will loop us around to Station Road. The abbey may have been lost in the 16th century as a result of Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, but there is the Darvel Bruderhof here, founded in 1971 as a Christian community. Another thing I discovered whilst researching Robertsbridge was it's the headquarters of Gilbert, makers of rugby balls and other rugby equipment. If you've watched international rugby at all, you'll be familiar with the brand. Now we've returned to where the High Street meets George Hill, and we're going to drop down the hill and follow the High Street. Another thing I found interesting whilst researching this road trip is, as well as the mainline railway station at Robertsbridge, there is also the terminus of the Rother Valley Railway, a heritage railway. Don't get too excited because no trains run on it yet. However, plans are well underway to connect Robertsbridge to Bodiam Station that we saw in part 1, and then you'll be able to take a steam train all the way to Tenterden. If you want to see that, then you're going to have to watch our Tenterden video. Now back to Robertsbridge. I know it's small, but it's quaint and historic. If I ignore the 21st century traffic, I'm sure I could hear the sounds of a stagecoach roaring into town. What do you think? Worth a stopover? Anyway, I think it's time we continue this road trip, so we need to head back up the High Street and back to the car park. So our next destination is Rudyard Kipling's former home, Batemans. It's just 6 miles from here, so we should be there in a flash. Or maybe not. No, if you can avoid the trains, it's worthwhile. Actually, in no time at all, we're on our way again. It's time for a little housekeeping, and time to say if you've liked this video and you're not already subscribed, don't forget to, and hit that notification bell. A like would be nice too, just to let me know you've enjoyed it. If you make it to the end, drop me a comment and let me know your favourite place we visited. I know these roads look a little narrow in places, but if you keep your wits about you and keep an eye out for passing places, you'll be fine. As I said earlier, I've kept all the turns in, but you may find your routing software may take you another route. I should also mention I will be quiet in places, but not for too long of course, to allow you to enjoy the drive. So our route to Batemans has taken us via Burwash. We'll pass back through here after, and we'll also stop and take a proper look around. So we've arrived at Batemans, now let's get parked up. We already have a full video of Batemans, so I'll just show you a snippet. You probably know Rudyard Kipling from his stories such as The Jungle Book, The Man Who Would Be King, to name but a few, as well as the stirring poem If. If you know more about the man and his views, as seen from the 21st century, are dated, empirical. But let's remember the man who gave us Baloo and Shere Khan. I love the way the National Trust has recreated Kipling's last home as he would have left it, complete with full waste bin. The National Trust has done wonders with the grounds and gardens, which make them great to visit in spring, summer and early autumn. Time waits for no man, and we have to return to Burwash. And do you know how hard it is for me to stick to Burwash and not slip into Burmarsh? Burmarsh is some 30 miles away, and the start of our tour of the historic churches of Romney Marsh, but reasons best left in my pickled little brain, I get the two confused, and they're not even similar. Anyway, Burwash has a village car park, so let's see if we can find a parking spot. Once again, Burwash is today a pretty little village that time seems to have forgotten, except for the traffic, lined with historic listed buildings that hold hundreds of years of secrets. Again, the Historic England site is your friend here. A search brings up a host of blue pins, such as number 1 and 2 Southside. But behind this pretty facade is a story of a village with a darker past, not only favoured by smugglers and the like, but also a hotbed for highwaymen in the 18th and 19th centuries. although now we remember their most celebrated resident, Rudyard Kipling. This statue of Kipling reflects a rather sad man without joy, perhaps reflecting on him in later life after the death of his only son John. John died in the Battle of Loos in the First World War, and like so many of the fallen, not buried in the local churchyard but in a Commonwealth war grave in Aisne, France. There is of course a war memorial in the village, at a junction in the road where it will be seen by the most. And on that memorial there is an inscription for 2nd Lieutenant John Kipling, died 29th September 1915, aged 18. Time to move on. And I say it every time, but if there's a church and a cemetery, especially a Norman one, then Janice is drawn in. After a mercifully brief visit, we head back towards the car, and as we amble back, admiring the history of the village, I truffle out another watering hole, the Rose and Crown, hidden down a narrow lane. If you prefer a different kind of refreshment, there's also the blacksmith's tea and coffee shop on the high street. Now we're back in the car for the 7-mile drive to Hawkhurst and our little slip into Kent. But there is a reason, which I'll explain when we get there. Actually, our first stop is Hawkhurst and the Moor area, with its historic St Lawrence Church, the Eight Bells pub, and I guess the village green. Then we take the short hop of about 2 miles to the Hawkhurst that spans the crossroads. I know it's confusing. It'll be a little clearer in a minute. Anyway, we'll be passing through Etchingham, another village with a train station. In fact, it's the one before or after Robertsbridge, depending on your direction of travel. And here is Etchingham Station. We're now approaching Hurst Green. Just remember that for a moment. I'll refer back to it shortly. Oh, and we're passing a couple of host houses. Remember them from part 1? Without referring back, drop me a comment to tell me what they were used for. So we've now arrived at the Moor area of Hawkhurst. Time to find somewhere to park. And here we have the Church of St Lawrence, with its 14th and 15th century origins, although restored and extended in 1849. And I guess I should now explain why I've crossed the border into Kent and brought you to Hawkhurst. That is the Hawkhurst Gang, a bunch of smugglers who created havoc from the 1730s until they were defeated in 1747. And the reason I called out Hurst Green? Well, in 1740, one of the gang, George Chapman, was captured in a raid. He was executed and gibbeted in his home village of Hurst Green, and gibbeting is where the deceased body is publicly displayed from a gallows-like support to act as a deterrent. Now, I haven't said much about the moor, but we need to make our way to Highgate, part 2 of Hawkhurst. As I mentioned, it's 2 miles from here to the crossroads, so that's why we're back in the car. I'll carry on with tales of the Hawkhurst Gang a little later, and a word of warning, this bit can be a little slow. When we eventually reach the crossroads at the top, we want to take a right. I'm going left to show you North Grove car park. It's limited to 2 hours, but it's free. There's a Waitrose car park to our right, again limited to 2 hours, but we're heading to Fowler's car park, which is also limited to 2 hours and free. The point is, there's available free parking. So let's park up and explore Hawkhurst. We might as well start by the library, where there's a blue plaque for Charles Gunther, who gave us the Oxo Cube. The notice board also tells us when Hawkhurst ruled the Weald. All of that in a moment. All Saints Church impresses. That's probably because it's by George Gilbert Scott, a famous Victorian architect. Across the road is Dunk's School and Almshouses. So why did Hawkhurst rule the Weald? Well, it has over 1,000 years of history. It was the centre of the iron industry since Roman times. Check out the impressive ironwork on the colonnade. In the 14th century, Edward III encouraged Flemish cloth makers to the Weald. The area around Hawkhurst was a centre for hop production. There's more, but I haven't left myself enough time. I'm sorry, Hawkhurst. The Royal Oak is one further possible stopover before we head back to Rye and complete this road trip. As we leave the car park, we will pass the Oak and Ivy pub. It's currently closed awaiting refurbishment. This was one of the headquarters of the infamous Hawkhurst gang. Another of their headquarters was the Mermaid Inn in Rye. This is why this trip had to link the two. As we close in on this learner driver, we come across this traffic light. Another level crossing? Nope, traffic management across a single track bridge over the River Rother. But we do cross another set of railway lines, Northiam Station on the Kent and East Sussex Steam Railway. We need to head off to the left. We're following the signs for Rye. I forgot to mention it's around 14 miles from Hawkhurst to Rye. If we'd skipped Hawkhurst and gone straight from Burwash, we would have saved about a mile. We've just passed through Four Oaks, and as I mentioned in part 1, I love place names. Some are obvious, some are not. We've passed through Sandhurst, no, not that one, heading through Peasmarsh, towards Rye Foreign. That one intrigued me. A little research revealed that Rye Foreign got its name because Rye and Winchelsea were once subjects of the Abbey of Fécamp in Normandy. Henry III brought the ports back under the Crown's control. However, an area outside Rye remained under the control of the Abbey, and this became known as Rye Foreign. So we're closing in on Rye now. I'm going to be quiet for a moment until we reach the outskirts. Okay, that was just a moment. Ideally I'd like to go straight on through the Landgate, but the traffic flow through Rye has changed. You may have noticed we've just passed 2 car parks. There are plenty more scattered around Rye, but to the best of my knowledge, none are free. As we pass the quayside, I'm going to turn right and head into town. That ahead of us is Mermaid Street, but we're turning into Wish Ward. We're back out on the ring road around Rye. Road closures and traffic management have caught me out. We're going to pass the car park we left from, and Rye's railway station will be on our left. We're going to stick to the left and head along Sankport Street. Have you been keeping count of the car parks? As we cross the mini roundabout, we hit Tower Street, and I'm going to slow the footage as we head under the Landgate. Now it's a climb up East Cliff, and this time I will be quiet for you to enjoy Rye. I'm back again as we rejoin the quayside. Let's lose the car and take one final look at Rye. As I said before, Rye is one of our favourite places. I know it's a bit touristy, but I still love it. It has plenty of quaint old world charm, but it can also be bang up to date. There's so much to keep you entertained, and as you've seen, plenty nearby. If you get the chance, do stay. You can even try out a smuggler's haunt. For me, it's the Giant's Fireplace Bar at the Mermaid Inn. I just need to keep an eye out for the ne'er-do-wells. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and happy travels.